Awesome, thank you.
I'll go next. So I really love what Lyndon said. So my recovery means to me kind of uncovering and reconnecting with who I am at my core and who I am authentically. So digging past the substance use, the mental health, the trauma, all of the negativity, and really getting to who I am as a person and being able to express that to everyone around me.
I love that, Ashton. Thank you.
I think for me, recovery is a lot about just trying to live a better life, that I can be happier with, where I can stand to wake up in the morning and go about my day, relatively content.
Thank you. So now that we know what recovery means for you, would you guys mind sharing kind of what your pathway to recovery is? Alex, do you want to go first?
Sure. So I started off, trying to get through the different 12-step programs while I was still struggling with substance use. And they kind of worked and they had some appeal to me. But ultimately, I kept using and ended up incarcerated for a while. And then in long-term inpatient rehab. And once I got out, I took the 12-step programs pretty seriously for a couple years and really built up a pretty solid foundation. And in that time, I also was experimenting with, like medication assisted treatment. I was got to use something called Vivitrol. It was relatively new when I was getting it, but it was like a once a month injection of an opiate blocker, like in your rear muscle. I actually really recommend it for anyone that's struggling. It helped me out quite a bit. Just knowing it was there, knowing, when I was prescribed Suboxone, I could just not take it, or I could sell it, or I could abuse it. But the medication assisted treatment really helped for a while too in those first couple years. And then I started getting more involved with the community and advocacy and helping other people on a broader scale. And I think that was what really kept me stable long term.
That's awesome. Thank you. Ashton or Lyndon, would you like to share like kind of the route that you took?
Sure. So like Lyndon said before, recovery is a lifelong journey. It's been something I'm doing. It's been something I did, something I'm doing, something I plan on doing for probably the rest of my foreseeable life. And I'm totally cool with that because it keeps me connected with myself and those around me. So mine has been mostly mental health, but also recently I decided to get sober because it's what I needed. It's what I need for my mental health. So it started with individual therapy, went to group therapy, then I cut it real close with almost needing to go to a hospital, but individual therapy and some medication there, and then to mutual aid meetings, exercise. Fitness has been a huge part of my recovery journey, and it keeps me, again, that connection with my body. And recently I found a mutual aid group that I absolutely love. I love going there every week. We always get pizza afterwards and we continue to talk, and it's fantastic. And something that really helps keep me connected and keeps me connected with my pathway every single day, and something I can do every day, is being accountable to someone else. So if someone says, hey, call someone every day, I can do that. And it keeps me connected with my recovery community, and it keeps me accountable. And being of service in that way is really what's keeping me like on my stuff every day.
I love that you brought up like the being accountable thing. I feel like sometimes people don't want to talk to other people about their recovery, but sometimes that's really what you need. You need somebody else to know. So when you're starting to slip, they can be like, hey. So I'm glad that you brought that up. Lyndon, was there anything you wanted to add?
I mean, basically, it's kind of the same. Well, not the same. Similar to Ashton, like mine's is basically physical health for me. I started going to the gym more. I started understanding who I am and what my purpose is in life. Because when I was having my instance where I was going through a downward spiral, I really didn't truly understand what it was that I was doing or the actions I was taking. I was just at a mental distraught. So now when I hit rock bottom and I decided that I was just going to dedicate myself to improving my mental health, my physical health, my spiritual health, just everything about me, because I had lost a lot of weight. I had lost 90 pounds and then I had to regain all of the pounds that I had lost. So it was just a journey by itself to get back to where I once was physically. So just to know like where I stand with myself has just been my pathway to recovery, and just knowing what makes me happy and knowing what motivates me and knowing my true purpose, which now I truly understand that, because for me it's helping youth. For me, it's being a father. For me, it's just being physically fit. So now to understand all those aspects of my life, I can now continue to go ahead and do the things that I need to do on a daily basis.
I love that. I know for me, like I decided that I was going to get sober because I found out I was pregnant for my daughter, you know, and that kind of was a wake up call for me because I was, I was in abusive situations. I was homeless. I was, and, I didn't see a problem with it. I was just like, it is what it is. This has been my life for a long time. And I got comfortable. But then when I found out I was pregnant, I was like, this isn't going to be my daughter's story. So that was like really like what I decided. And then kind of a mixture of everything that you guys are saying, like getting that mental health, like help and reaching out for support to be accountable. So I think it's cool that we're able to sit here and see how different, but yet how similar all of our stories are, how connected we are. So obviously people have strong opinions sometimes about recovery and the different pathways. So if you guys are comfortable, I'd really like to hear some of the beliefs that you've heard about your specific pathway.
So coming from the mental health end, for myself, I choose at this moment, and I'm phrasing it that way very intentionally, to not pursue individual therapy again or pursue medication, just because for right now, I'm trying to become more connected with myself, and I want to find that baseline and find that perfect combination of things I can do every day, of people I can be connected with, groups that I can become a part of, connection with whatever's out there kind of thing. And that's what I want to do for me right now. If it comes to a point and I change my mind and I decide differently, then that's how it is. I've had, again, speaking from my mental health, I've had people say, oh, you just need to be on this. You just need to talk to a therapist, but it didn't necessarily work for me before. When I was on certain medications, I come from a very rural place. I went to school in a very rural place. So the practitioners I went to didn't necessarily take the time to get to know me. So it was just a weird thing. But when I was on medication, I felt so disconnected from myself. I felt like I was dissociating 24/7, and I didn't like that. And it made me behave in a way I would otherwise behave. So some people, medication works for them. Awesome, cool, totally rock it. For myself, it doesn't necessarily work for me at this moment. Some people, individual therapy, it might work for them. Totally cool, awesome, rock it. Doesn't work for me right now, and that's okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, I agree with Ashton. It's like kind of the same thing with me. Like medications do not work because I had an overdose on my own antidepressants So it was just a sign like it's not for me. I had a conversation with my mentor, who I've known since I was 13. And basically, what he told me was, listen, if you know it's not right, find something else to replace it. So whether that was going to the gym or writing in a journal or doing something positive that helps me to cope with whatever I'm experiencing, he said, go ahead and do that. But don't let anybody deter you from whatever decision that you want to make, because at the end of the day, this is your life and your story. I've been told, I have been told, oh, you need therapy. Oh, you need to go get checked out. All the stigmatizations of being when I was mentally unstable, when all I'm saying is, what if I just need space? What if I just need time to just figure out who I am independently, rather than just trying to speak to someone from a non-judgmental perspective, but just trying to find peace within myself? What if therapeutic practices is not something that I want? So that's just like some things that I've been told. And I obviously did not listen to everyone's opinion. I go with what, based off of what I know will help me to recover in the way that I feel is best.
Could I add something real quick?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So, Lyndon, you just reminded me of something. So when, you know that, and trigger warning, self-harm, suicide, I'm just gonna put that out there for the next 30 seconds, starting now. You know that little disclaimer they say, when taking this medication, like thoughts of suicide or suicidal actions. Yeah, boy, it did not end well. I wasn't feeling well, and my psychiatrist offered solution was to up my dosage, but in fact that made it worse. So end of 30 seconds over. But also living as a queer identifying, trans identifying individual, not everyone understands the intricacies of how I exist and how I exist authentically and how to validate my existence authentically. And kind of being like pushed to the side, like, oh, you just need to talk to somebody. It kind of felt like a shove away, like kind of passing me from person to person instead of getting to know who I am, asking me, hey, what do you need? Like meeting you where I'm at. Like, what are your needs? How do you identify your needs? How can we work together so you can meet your needs? And that's what I needed. All right, I'm done.
I'm going to give Ashton a short plug too, if you'd like to hear more about some of the finer intricacies you mentioned. There is a pretty neat presentation on the 11th at 1 o'clock. That's yours, right? 13th? 11th? Hang on. Gosh.
Monday.
Monday.
I don't know what day of the week that is, but it's Monday.
Ashton, but I resonate with that so heavily, just to add on, because there's a lot of youth that I currently work with that they disclose the medications that they're taking. When they up the dosages, it does not help. It's not effective. So this is something that has to be reestablished by the medical professionals that we deal with on a day-to-day basis, and also how we advocate for those youth to make sure that they're getting what they need and not something that they don't.
Yeah. And so I work, so in my capacity with YBM, we do trainings to help teach youth how to use their voice, how to advocate for themselves, because unfortunately in a lot of situations, it's going to take self-advocacy in order to communicate your needs with the adults around you, because unfortunately adults are weird. They think they know what's best because they've lived longer on the planet. They haven't lived as you. So you kind of need to like step up to the plate and advocate for yourself. So learning how to find your voice and use your voice is very important. Sidestep, I also work per diem at a residential facility for girls with behavioral health diagnoses. A lot of the times I've noticed it's cookie cutter care. Cookie cutter care doesn't work, in my opinion, at all. It's one size doesn't fit all. It doesn't work for pants, it doesn't work for people. So really getting to know youth, especially when they're going through this great transformation. So synaptic pruning is the fancy way to put it. But when their brains are changing, everything's rushing in. It's important to know, like, hey, who are you? What's your name? What's your favorite color? What's your favorite kind of hot pocket? And like taking that time to get to know them really creates that bond where they can then communicate their needs to you. And it saves a lot of hassle.
Asking the right questions.
Yes, definitely. Alex, I know that your pathway to recovery is a little bit different from us three. Did you have anything you wanted to add about like any beliefs that you heard of?
Oh, yeah, like I was told that like, some of the stigmatization around like medication assisted treatment is like, oh, that doesn't count as clean time, or like, being incarcerated doesn't count as clean time because you're in jail, so you don't really have much of a choice, which is flawed logic because there's lots of drugs in jail. But some of those different like stigmas and stereotypes were like really present for me, especially early on as I was trying to like gain foundation and talk about, I've been in rehab for like months, I've been in jail for months, and then I was in, it's like I'm trying to celebrate anniversaries and stuff, and people would just be talking down to me about it. But it ends up going away for me, I guess, because I kind of like, I just shrugged it off, especially like as I kept succeeding. You know what I mean? I was like, I really could care less about some of these people's opinions, you know?
Yeah, I get that. I know for myself personally, I also, Ashton, am in a very rural community. I still am. And everybody knows everybody. And I had a reputation that wasn't the best, right? So when certain things would happen and I would try to like stand up for myself, I would get, well, that's what you get, like, or people wouldn't believe me. So like I really had to cut out everybody. Like all the people that were in my life 5 years ago are like non-existent now. Like I pretend like they do not exist, even though they live like 3 miles that way, you know? So I definitely get what you're saying, Alex, when people are kind of like, yeah, does that really count? Because I definitely had that issue too, especially in the very beginning. So I appreciate that you brought that up. So now that we heard some of like the negative like beliefs, what are some things that you wish like people knew about? Like your specific pathway?
That everybody's journey is different because recovery looks different for everybody and it's not the same thing. So for people to acknowledge that is just something that I wish that everybody knew more.
I think like one thing I wish I knew, or I wish that other people knew, is that like the 12-step groups aren't like the religious cults they're made out to be in the movies, right? Like it's not quite that dramatic. It's actually typically a pretty mellow environment, you know. I guess that's like one thing for me that always like struck out is just the movie dramatization. And then just I wish that people knew just how prevalent um, the substance use to incarceration rate really was, because I feel like there's still a lot of stigma that comes with incarceration, whatever the reason is, right? And I think that certain nonviolent drug offenders can automatically seem like these super bad career criminals, just because they've got the prisoner ID number attached to their name now.
So I'm gonna I love what both Lyndon and Alex said. So going off of what Lyndon said first, recovery is your own journey, just like your life is your own journey. And like whatever works for you works for you. It's kind of like getting a pizza. Everyone likes their own different combination of toppings and dipping sauces. So recovery is a lot like pizza in that way, where you can kind of like it. Some people might enjoy the same kind of pie. If it works for them, it works for them. Some people like to dip their pizza in ketchup, and that works for them. But other people might really not like that. That's totally cool. I see your head shaking, Alex. What Alex said. So I know, like you said, 12-step and mutual aid groups do get a pretty bad rap. In my own experience, I've had good, I've had not so good. But really going into it, from my own experience, going into it saying, hey, this is something I'm going to do for me in this space. I'm going to stay in this supportive recovery space, but kind of be in my own journey and take my own meanings out of the thing that I hear. And I forgot what the saying is, but it's identify, or like relate, not identify. I might be totally botching that, but really like take your own meaning out of it and only apply that to yourself, because it's not really going to fit everyone else. It's not cookie cutter. What works for you, and that's totally cool.
I love that pizza analogy. Are you saying that you dip your pizza in ketchup though?
I am saying I dip my pizza in ketchup. I am a sausage and banana pepper pizza. I dip it in ketchup, usually with some like hot sauce in there.
So does it taste somewhat like Italian sausage then? Just, I mean, why don't you put some green peppers and onions on it if you're gonna go that far? I feel like you're almost there.
Texture, because banana peppers and sausage get crispy, but peppers and onions stay generally mushy. Yeah.
Interesting.
Valid points. Well, thank you. So the next question I'll ask is, have you been turned away because of your recovery, whether that be from a club, from a school, from a job, from a social setting?
So I haven't been turned away necessarily, but I have chosen to take a unique approach to things depending on the setting. So I am someone who doesn't drink or use other substances, but I still go out. I still hang out with my friends. My cousin, who I'm very close with, we're going on a wine tour for her birthday. And I am the driver. I hope to get a little sash and a little hat, and I plan on calling ahead to see if they have any non-alcoholic wines for me. If not, I will drink juice. But that's just something that's interesting and like weird to navigate. It does require a little bit of planning, but it's better to have a plan and not need it than need a plan and not have it. So for me, that means having some phone numbers in my phone, kind of setting that up ahead of time, like, hey, like I might give you a call if I need you. Kind of communicating my needs in that way ahead of time, making the plan, letting my friends know, hey, I'm not drinking tonight, I am driving. So giving myself something to do, an obligation. So I'm keeping myself accountable by saying I'm driving, letting my friends know, because they will keep me accountable because they're such good friends and I love them very much. And they've been so supportive of me. And kind of making that plan and sticking to it. Also being a queer identifying person, and I'm going to talk about this in my other little presentation that Alex alluded to. A lot of, unfortunately, queer spaces are spaces that encourage substance use. So when you think gay, the first thing you think of is bar. So trying to find those sober, safe queer spaces, or turning those not so sober spaces into sober spaces for maybe like a night a week. I'm trying to like work it that way.
Awesome. Thanks. I don't think I haven't really been turned away, but I did have some interesting barriers that got thrown at me. Like when I got out of rehab and incarceration and tried applying to college, they gave me a really hard time about that because I was a convicted felon. They gave me a really hard time about that. I had to get paperwork from the judge that sentenced me, my probation officer, and my drug and alcohol outpatient counselor. I had to get all sorts of paperwork from like my lawyer that just showed all sorts of stuff about the criminal case and stuff. And then when I finally got accepted, the community college told me I was like already on my last strike. They're like one issue and you're out, and you're not allowed to join any sports, and you're not allowed to play in any of like there was like a philosophy club and like a chess club and stuff that I was like really interested in, and it was not allowed. I wasn't allowed to do any of the extracurriculars. They told me no extracurriculars, no sports or extracurriculars, which was rough because, you know, I was a young person at that time. I would have been about 22, 23 at the time. So even though I was only a couple years older than the rest of the college kids, I still kind of felt, you know, like I wasn't really allowed to socialize with them or whatever. I wasn't, you know, allowed to join the clubs or do stuff, you know, with the teams or whatever. And you know, not that I ever really wanted to play baseball, but you know, at least I would have liked to at least had the option if I had wanted to, you know, and I don't know, stuff like that was rough to try and, you know, deal with as a young person, especially, you know.
Thank you for sharing that, Alex. That must be really hard. And I'm sure a lot of people have experienced similar things, you know, they go through a rough patch and then they go home and they're trying to do better for themselves. And then they see all these obstacles in front of them as to why sometimes people don't do better for themselves, you know. Lyndon, are you still there? Did you want to say anything?
I'm dealing with traffic, but what was the question again? Sorry.
Have you been turned away from anything, whether that be like a club, a school, a job, a social activity, etc.?
Yes. I mean, I've been turned away from a position, a job position, but that was because I felt like the person who interviewed me felt like it just wasn't my time. So right now I have the opportunity to reclaim that position. So other than that, hopefully it falls through because it'll be a position where I could possibly be in a higher position from the one I'm currently at. So I'm kind of excited for that.
Thank you for sharing. I can say that my last job, even as an advocate, I didn't disclose right away that I was in recovery because there was a very stigmatized like reaction in general at the agency that I worked at. You know, like we were supposed to be very inclusive and you know, providing services to young people and to their families. But we would watch movies or documentaries or whatever. And, you know, my coworkers who were older than me, I was the youngest person that worked there at the time. So these were all like family advocates. You know, they would say some things that made me super uncomfortable, to the point where I only very recently, probably within like the past 2 years, started sharing that part of my story.
So I know we've got a couple questions left, but I think it's Gazella and Kristen. Did I get the pronunciation right? Asked a neat question in the chat that I think honestly we could probably spend the rest of the time talking about. So just reading it out, Kristen and I represent a mental health clinic. We've been asked by the DOH to provide services to individuals struggling with substances and or post-incarceration and or homelessness. What are your thoughts, ideas about a mental health clinic as us providing services to people who maybe don't think therapy and meds is the route to go? How do we navigate this? Thank you all so much. You're inspirational. We'd like to add recovery services to our menu. If you could give us some advice on the most helpful services and staffing could be for us to offer. So I'll start. So I'm going to give a quick plug to the peer services. Don't know exactly how familiar you guys are with the different peer services that are out and available. I think me and Ashton are probably both going to go on a rant here in a second. I'm not sure what the status is with the SERPA-Y, especially with the possible conglomeration of the OMH and OASIS. But the SERPA is currently Medicaid billable. It's a peer services that's substance use based. Ashton's going to talk more about that and what that looks like. We over at Families Together, the credentialing body for the family peer advocate credential and the youth peer advocate credential. The youth peer advocate credential is more on the Office of Mental Health side, but you know, I was a youth peer advocate, even though my background is in substance use, because it's still a mental health challenge, and it's still something I needed mental health treatment for. So it's kind of a gray area, and right now it's one of the main approved Medicaid billable services under CAFTIS. It's the Child and Family Treatment Support Services. So since January of 2020 for me, and I think June of 2019 for Ashton, these services have been billable, and all over the state people are trying to roll them out. So check out the peer services. They're super useful. They're non-traditional. It's kind of like a halfway point between one-on-one therapy and a 12-step group. It's kind of like because you're doing it with other. So in my experience, I was in jail, I was in rehab, I was a recovering addict, right? And I was helping youth who were still struggling. And I was like, this didn't work for me, but I really liked, the Vivitrol shot, look into that. And it's like, well, I didn't really like this particular, Tuesday night meeting, but if you go check out Thursdays, it's really cool, or stuff like that really gives some authenticity to, the engagement that you're having with your, I think you used the word clients or patient. So it really adds more authenticity just based on the fact that the person that's providing the services is somebody that's lived through it in their own right. So that is, I would love to, this is going to be a nice long conversation. So to do the certified peers, so SERPA, you know what, I'm going to let Ashton do the link for that. I'll put in the YPA link and some stuff for that, right? And then Ashton can handle the SERPA type stuff, whatever he can get his hands on, really. And I'm not sure, let's see here. You're a mental health clinic, so you would need to apply for designation from the Office of Mental Health. I'm not sure where you guys are, but you're honestly your field office coordinator for whichever region you're in. So I'm in Western region. I'm Gene Sadawi's territory. Julie, do you know who yours is? Gladys?
Yeah, Gladys Smith.
Yeah, so your Office of Mental Health field office coordinator should be able to help you apply if you decide to go through the YPA route. The SERPA route is again something I'll have to let Ashton talk about. And therapy and meds might not be right for everyone. So encouraging some of the non-traditional, more authentic engagement practices like this is something to keep in mind, or even going as far as saying, well, one way or another, you've got to get better. So what are you going to do if meds and therapy isn't the route that you want to go? What is, right? So I'm going to start getting links and stuff ready. Ashton, if you want to give your spiel on SERPA.
Okay, so I'm gonna give two spiels. So first, what is a SERPA? It's a Certified Recovery Peer Advocate. So it's someone who has lived experience in recovery or family member, friend, but that really honing in on that lived experience kind of aspect of it. and can provide peer services. So how I think of peer services, you have your clinicians. So like we're talking like MSWs, psychologists, whatever the heck, but they don't use their personal lived experience, and they don't disclose that lived experience. So they're kind of up here is how I think. And then the person that is seeking help is kind of down here. So there's that power dynamic. There's that clear relationship of I am clinician, I am person seeking clinical services. There's that clear break, and there's those boundaries associated with that. And usually that involves not really any self-disclosure kind of thing. And then SERPAs or YPAs are kind of closer. So there is a bit of that self-disclosure. There is that lived experience that's used to kind of offer service to the person. So I'll use an analogy of a mechanic. So a mechanic has never been to school, but they've been a mechanic for 15 plus years. They've worked on countless cars, but they don't have a single thing of education behind them. And then you have another person that has worked on a couple cars, but they have the education, but they don't necessarily have that lived experience. So some people might opt for the lived experience route. Some people might opt for the education route. Even better, someone with the lived experience that gets the education. But it all depends on like what your flavor is. And sometimes that combination of things is perfect. So my educational background is I have my BSW and I have my MSW. How I learned how to be a clinician is very, very different. There's that big line of you need to set up boundaries, you need to keep those boundaries, and there's not really a lot of self-disclosure in anything. In my peer role, so I am what I call a peer mentor. I'm working on my YPA, but I haven't quite gotten it yet. In my peer role, I tell the youth that I work with, hi, I'm a trans person. I've lived experience in suicide attempts, self-harm, mental illness. And part of that kind of builds that rapport and kind of opens up conversation where they feel, hey, I can talk to this person because they've lived through it. They have that lived experience, which is completely, it's so incredibly important, I think. But also the young person I work with does have clinicians that they speak to. And that different kind of relationship is supported in a different kind of way. And I talk to those clinicians. So being able to be that advocate saying, hey, like as a person with lived experience and knowing this person in a way that, frankly, I don't think you know that person in that way. Here's how we can work together to make sure that person gets the best care that they need. So the link that I found is the ASAP job bank. So ASAP is the Association of Substance Abuse Providers. The substance abuse in itself, the name, we're going to fix it, substance use, not abuse. Abuse has a negative connotation, language matters. But they have a job bank where you can post a job where all of the SERPAs, because they all get credentialed through ASAP through the New York Certification Board. If they find your job posting, they can apply and you'll get a certified recovery peer advocate. Do you have any questions? I know I gave like a big old spiel.
Ashton, why you didn't plug me? I'm a youth fair advocate.
Oh, that's right. He's actually, you're in the New York City region right now. So I don't know where you guys are located. So I'm going to put my email in here.
Yeah, I'm going to put mine too.
Put yours in there and put, that way they can just copy and paste it. I put like the OMH funded youth peer advocate and then just spell out like SERPA for them too, you know?
Yeah, and send
I
me,
can just say that the youth peer advocate credential, it's worth it, but it's, you know, me being a youth peer advocate has its pros and its cons. I'm grateful that I possess the lived experience to help other youth, you know, who are facing either homelessness, incarceration, foster care, mental health. The position that I'm in currently, I work specifically with homeless youth between the ages of 16 to 24. prior to that, I was working for the wraparound program, which is a lot different than what I currently work for now in mental health. Both different spectrums, but they both are the same exact thing. I possess the lived experience to help people in both mental health and homelessness because I have been homeless since the age of 18, still and unstably housed until today. And I have a lot of mental health diagnoses that I'm currently recovering from. So a YPA is literally your walking book as to like somebody who can just give you that guidance to overcome certain challenges. So if you're looking to be a YPA, I strongly encourage to do so.
Quick thing to plug as well. So like I've said about 15 times, and I will continue to say until I'm blue in the face, I'm a person who identifies their sexuality as queer and is a member of the trans community. And I guess, person that Youth Voices Matter works with, one of our partner organizations. Their name is Ashley. They are non-binary and identify their sexuality as queer, and they're a person in recovery from substance use disorder, and I'm in recovery from mental health. We created a training that was approved for one continuing ed credit from the New York Certification Board for CARCs and SERPAs. And our program is how to provide peer services to queer youth and young adults. We teach language, we teach what happens if you make a mistake, how to A, not do that again, B, learn from it and move forward in a way that's helpful and constructive for everyone. So I think that would be a good thing to do, just because we all know that queer folks exist. And unfortunately, there is a really big intersection between substance use, mental health, and queer identifying folks because stigma. So I highly recommend you look at that. And ASAP is a great resource for SERPAs. Also, if you go to Friends of Recovery New York, they post trainings for people to become certified recovery peer advocates. So the RCA and ethics, which is the core curriculum.
I'm gonna grab the registration link real quick for the your Zoom presentation on the 13th here. Hang on. Let's see. So with that being said, please reach out to us, I or Ashton, for whatever you may need. I'm glad we were more helpful than the OMH. We try. And I guess I could say that confidently. I just put the registration link in. Ashton and Ashley, who just mentioned, are doing a presentation on the 13th at 1 o'clock about the LGBTQ population substance use. I put the registration link in the chat. If you guys weren't aware, today is actually part 1 of a 6-part series we're doing. I'm seeing a head nod. So check out the rest. I'm really excited for all of them, actually. So I'm really glad you guys came. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hope you enjoyed it.
Thank you for having us. Thank you
Yeah.
for sharing.
Cool.
Okay, could we actually have talked all along?
Yes.
I wasn't aware. We should have, would have been maybe a little bit easier. Well, thank you so much, guys. That was really, really helpful. And you're awesome. It was very inspirational listening to you and your journeys. So makes us excited to start this work. Thank you so much.
Yep.
Awesome.
Thank you so much for coming, and hopefully we'll see you again next week.
Yeah, we have signed up for all the
For the series.
for the series.
Oh, good. Good. Good.
Before you told us, yeah. So
Yeah.
okay.
All right, cool. Well, thanks so much, everyone.
Have a good weekend. Okay. Bye-bye.